to the fourth branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. Welcome. Today we have a very rich program for you. I hope you stick around. We will take a quick look at a very important topic, which is the Green New Deal, a topic that's been making news in Washington since after the midterm election. We will also take a look at the road to 2020, how many Democrats candidates lined up to get rid of Donald Trump from the Oval Office. And we will also take a look at anti-Semitism in sync with institutionalized racism in America. Please stay with us as we will begin the discussion of these topics and others. If you're a young individual, 16 and 20, you don't want to miss that. I'll be right back. I am MD, host of the fourth branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events, as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. If you join us for the first time, welcome. It is also a reminder that past episodes of this program can be found on the People Branch YouTube channel. So if you head to the People Branch YouTube channel, follow those steps on the screen, and you can browse the People Branch YouTube channel for whichever topic you may be interested in. And also while you're there, I would strongly encourage you to subscribe to the People Branch YouTube channel, which will give us the opportunity to send you invites, update, and also to keep you abreast of other activities we have with the Fourth Branch. Now, the first order of topic, which is the Green New Deal. Now, let me show you something that you probably can only see in movies. Dinosaur. This is a fossil of a dinosaur. what does dinosaur have to do with the Green New Deal? Well, just a couple of weeks ago, paleontologists, those are the people that scour the earth and try to find what underground, and being able to figure out what life was millions of years ago and what kind of creatures used to live on this planet. And the research, they've been doing that for quite some time, provides them the knowledge to pass to us so that we understand exactly what our planet is all about. Now, those are fossils of dinosaurs. Well, those creatures no longer exist. They used to roam our planet 100 millions of years ago. This a particular fossil that was discovered a couple of weeks ago, dated as far back as 135 million years. Now, why do you need to know that? Well, those creatures no longer exist. Well, of course, you already know that, but the question is why? Why do those creatures, very large creatures, just disappear? Well, it so happened that the reason that those creatures disappeared is because that there were a lot of changes happening on our planets. Climate change, we can call it that, or you can call it something else. Earthquake, flooding, and so on. And I'm sure that along the way there were also some planetary impact, maybe meteorites falling on the face of Earth and causing a lot of activities. As such, those creatures disappeared. Now they very huge, but they had a very big disadvantage. They could not run fast, and you can understand why. They very, very heavy, but their legs could not sustain the idea of them running fast. It just was not possible. But the point is, they disappeared because, well, our climate did not provide them with any chance to survive, because, as I mentioned, earthquake, flooding, maybe volcanoes, a number of really very drastic activities on our planet did get rid of them in one way or the other. Now, because they were huge, if there is an earthquake and their legs, even if it were to be just one of their legs get caught under, they would not be able to pull themselves out of that hole, so they would definitely die there. And that's the reason we paleontologists have been digging and finding that there are fossils across in many parts of our planet where those fossils are buried. Now, the reason I mention that is because when Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez proposed the Green New Deal, the Republican Party as a whole members of the Republican Party have been mocking her, and into Fox or any other network or radio station which are mostly Republican leaning, make a lot of fun of Miss Cortez. Now, one thing that I am having a very difficult time grasping is this. There are ignorant people, which, whether it's here in the United States or anywhere in the world, we have those. And by ignorant, I don't mean people who didn't go to school, because as we see today, and we will talk about that in a little while when we debate the topics, the road to 2020. You see, we were all born ignorant, but there are just a few chosen to do something about our ignorance. But the majority, millions of individuals, seem to just decide to stay ignorant. And I say that actually with great pain, because it is sad when you live with individuals who simply do not want to get out of ignorance. Individuals go to school because that does not determine whether someone is ignorant or not. Now, the Green New Deal, the reason I gave you the example of the dinosaur, which no longer here, is because, well, we can put a little bit of humor to it, saying that we did not have an Ocasio-Cortez to warn them about changes in the plan. They have an Al Gore to campaign and go around and tell them that, well, if they don't do anything, at some point they will disappear from the face of this planet. But most important, even if they did have that, they would have a problem that we humans should not have. Because the dinosaur, as you were, did not have the ability to do anything about whatever was coming their way. There was absolutely nothing that they could do. But it so happened that we, human, superior animals, we have the ability, we have the resources, we can deploy to do something about it, if not necessarily cure, because we may not be able to reverse what already happened, but we can slow down the process, and doing that will help to preserve this planet for future. Now, that sounds like a sensible thing, that sounds like a logical thing to do, right? But not if you talk to Republicans. Whether it's Republican legislators, Republican pundits, they mock Democrats every time they bring this conversation to the surface. But what is even more sad about this particular predicament is because it is something, it is an issue that can define the future of our planet, that can define future generation. Instead of putting ourselves together and find a solution for it, then you have a party, the Republican Party, whether it's the legislators or the pundit, instead of looking at that as the opportunity, maybe for the first time, that we have a common fate, just like the dinosaurs, that we continue to mock those who've been warning about that, and sooner or later the human race will also disappear. Now, granted that we, this generation, maybe the next and the one after that, may not be alive at the point that this this situation happen. But ignoring such an important issue, mocking those that bring them to the surface, it's mind-boggling. But there is a reason why Republicans in general, I blame both the Republican legislators and the constituent, but I blame the constituent much less than I blame the legislators and the pundit. Here is the reason. You see, constituent, as I mentioned earlier, they tend to be naive, they tend to be gullible, they tend to be ignorant. They tend to simply follow what their leaders tell them. They tend to echo what they hear. They tend to simply repeat. They tend to simply accept. And that makes them very vulnerable, and it makes them also a grave danger to our society. Because planet Earth is the only planet we humans have. Is the only planet thus far that we humans can live. Now, science has been making a lot of progress trying to find another planet, but despite everything we've heard, despite all the hope that there is another planet or other planets elsewhere in the universe that can accommodate or that may accommodate our lifestyle, available today that would provide us the ability to leave planet Earth and go and live in that planet, so to speak. As such, the only solution that exists today, the only sensible, logical solution that exists today is for us humans to realize that we ought to preserve this planet. How much simpler can that be? But instead, Republicans decide to fight every step of the way in order for this particular problem not to find a solution, not to implement a solution. As if something happened to this planet, the only people that suffer are the Democrats. Now, I blame the legislators. Here's the reason. And the pundit. You see, Republican legislators, and you'll see in other topics we debate. In fact, we're going to make it a point of putting our focus on all the actions that Republican legislators have been doing that are detrimental to the nation, that are detrimental to the constituent, that are detrimental to our way of life, that are detrimental even to our own existence. And I'm going to show you that it's not because those legislators it's not because they are stupid, it's because they simply want instant gratification. For instance, the reason that Republicans are so much against the idea of doing something about climate change, it's not because they do not know that indeed most scientists in the world, not just in the United States, scientists in the world have been warning us that the climate change will impact us humans in very big way, and they have proof, they have data to show that. It's not because Republican legislators are not in possession of those information. Instead of doing something about it, they look for what we call climate deniers. Say, yes, we don't believe there is such thing coming up in. The reason they do that, by the way, is because if they get on board, then they will have to push legislation that are not favorable to companies such as oil companies. And those companies, they give large sum of money to help them get eliminated. And here's the reason, here's the principal reason, here's the main reason that Republicans could not give a damn about the planet. They could not give a damn about the constituent. They do not give a damn about the future generation, because as far as they're concerned, the next election, winning the next election, is all that matters. It boils down to just that. They make the calculation, they're not going to be around, and chances are 2-3 generations down the road are not going to be around, so maybe future generations don't worry about it. Maybe by that time they will find a planet to go to. Yes, this is what we have in the Republican Party. Legislators who deliberately, not because they don't know, they deliberately decide to take action that are detrimental to their constituent, that are detrimental to the nation, that are detrimental to our society, that are detrimental to even future generation, to even the future of our planet, because it provides instant gratification. They can tell the oil industry, the oil manufacturer, the oil industries that, see, I'm protecting you, my re-election is coming, so I need your help. And they manage to convince their constituent, who unfortunately are gullible, and to buy the fact that there is no problem with climate. It is sad. And you find that the pundit, on the other hand, because they get paid, as I will show you shortly, that a clip of a pundit, a very well-known one, a pundit that goes where else, on Fox, to make a case, not to propose a solution about the issue we're talking about, not to advance the conversation, not to show that there is an alternative, but like Republicans always do. Instead of addressing the issue at hand, instead of proposing a solution, instead of looking at the opportunity to have something to work with the other side, which, by the way, is good not just for Democrats, it's good for society as a whole. What do? Let me not ruin the surprise for you.
To compete with you on radio, I know how hard you work and how good you are at it.
You filled in my show in years gone by, and you used to host on radio stations in Atlanta all the time.
And I want to tell everybody who's watching, I have tried to do what you do, and I admire you, and I admire Rush.
Well, thanks.
Because you guys spend so many hours
lavishing each other.
But it's real work.
Everyone that said, well, everyone has one good talk show. And what are you going to do on day 500? That's what I always say to people. Let me. So here we have the new Green Deal. No planes, no cars, no oil, no gas. Everything's free, and no cows. That bothers me. And she says, accused the Wells Fargo CEO of caging children or financing it. Don't worry about being automated out of your job. Does that mean we'll have robotic socialists that just utter the same words every day? Because that's what a lot of Democrats do.
You know, I've been trying to understand how to put, as a historian, in context what we're watching. In a normal, healthy society, Alexandria would be seen as this interesting graduate student who had gotten into some college with a good student loan, hung out a lot, smoked a little grass, drank a little beer, had a good time, once read half of a book, knows nothing, and nobody would take her seriously. In a healthy society, she would be a joke.
I don't know what first, which means they continue to dumbify the audience as seems to be the strategy for Fox. And you have the historian Gingrich. And what did you hear him address climate change? Did you hear him even talk about the very aspect of the issue that she proposed? Absolutely not. What he went for directly is to attack her. In a normal, healthy society, Alexandria would be seen as a joke. That's the question I ask. Why is that? Now, the same guy, Newt Gingrich, that think in a normal, healthy society, lavishes who else? Sean Hannity, Donald Trump of praise. The Republicans have this, and what makes it even more sad is the fact that those are individuals who exploit the weaknesses of the constituent, of the audience, which is anger, which is ignorance, and they feed them what they want to hear, but offers absolutely no solution. I was reading an article that talks about that specific issue, and you should see the kind of comment at the bottom of the article about Alexandria Ocasio. Not about what she proposed, not about what Republicans should do, or what maybe Republicans should offer an alternative, a solution, but rather attacking her for proposing a way to save our planet. Yes, that's what Republican legislators, individuals who are in a position to change the conversation, and those are the very people that continue to exploit the weaknesses of their constituent, who are highly gullible, who are very naive, and who are obviously ignorant. Instead of educating them, instead of taking them and leading them in the right direction so that we as a society can find solution for serious problems like this. No, that's not what they do. Now, Gingrich, we know that he expecting to make his little money with Fox, so he has to say exactly what Fox expect him to say, otherwise they would no longer invite him and he would lose that money. But for that reason, he would say anything, no matter how divisive that is, no matter how little sense it makes. He would say it because it's all about the Benjamin. Now, why exactly why was Newt Gingrich talking about Alexandria and not about the issue at hand? Because as far as they are concerned, making money to the detriment of the audience, because the audience continue to be dumb, the audience continue to be ignorant. That's not their problem. Making money is. And the legislators, they do exactly the same thing. Instead of addressing a problem that threatens our society, what do? They feed the audience, their constituent, the lies that it's all politics, it's not true, there is no climate problem, for one reason and one reason alone, so that they continue to get financing money for their campaign from oil industry. To hell with the constituent, to hell with the country. And this is the predicament we as a nation we're going through. It's not because those legislators don't know. It's not because those pundits don't know. It's because as far as they're concerned, they want instant gratification. Newt Gingrich making money with Fox. More important to him, it just doesn't matter. The audience can stay dumb because that's not his problem. Did he give any answer about what Ocasio went directly to attack her? What does that have to do with a topic that is that important that we should all work on? Absolutely nothing. But he sees Ocasio-Cortez is that, well, that interesting. Now, the word interesting should actually raise a red flag. I guess on TV couldn't say what exactly he meant, because if you follow the thread of the conversation, you can clearly see what he meant when he said that interesting individual who get a student loan, go to school, drink beer, smoke pot, and would be a joke. Do you want to substitute the word interesting for what Mr. Gingrich meant? Because he didn't mean interesting in any way that you may be thinking. Because what does that mean? That interesting individual who's in a normal, healthy society, she would be that interesting individual who get a student loan, goes to school, drink beer, smoke pot, and would be considered a joke in that society. You can easily feel like. So what would that make Alexandra? Maybe would be white, and she would come with that, and then everybody would applaud her for being so creative, for taking that important of an issue and then try to solve it. But because she's not white, she's that interesting individual that would just take a student loan, go to school, smoke pot, drink beer, and then would be considered a joke in society. Mr. Gingrich couldn't be any clearer. And that's what Republicans, pundit Republican legislators have been doing, and that's why our society is what it is today. It's not just the gullible constituent, it's the individual they look up to, the individual that could guide them in the right direction, that would put them in the right path. Those are the individuals who would rather make a penny and continue to steer them in the wrong direction. Yes, that's what we have in our society.
In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore.
If you join us for the first time, welcome. This is the fourth branch program, the place for government. We are discussing the Green, which is a proposal by Ms. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in order to save our planet. But unfortunately, we have the whole Republican Party opposing the effort in order to save future generation, in order to save our society from this impending danger. I mentioned earlier that dinosaur is no longer with us, not because, well, they were all killed by some individual or by people choosing, by very drastic change on our planet, climate change. Today, once again, as a society, we are faced with one of the most important issues of our lifetime. It is an issue that will define our society, that will define future generations, that may even define human race. But instead of helping to solve that problem, to look for solutions together, the whole Republican Party has created a vacuum in which they discuss this important issue as if it is politics. Disappearing from the face of the planet is not politics. Not being able to live a life on this planet, on planet Earth, has nothing to do with politics. For those who have the intelligence, for those who have the understanding, for those who care about future generations, I urge you to get rid of your Republican legislators, because they are not concerned about you. They're not concerned about the future of the country. They're not concerned about future generation. They are looking for instant gratification, using you, the constituent, as a tool to get there. They have shown that many, many times. And if you are concerned for your children, for your grandchildren, it is time you recognize that the individual you put so much trust in have been deceiving you. They have not been attending to your interests. They are selfish individuals who simply could not care less what happened to you, what happened to your children, what happened to the country, what happened to future generation. When we come back, we will take a look at war on blacks, a race relation topic. We will also debate anti-Semitism. I'll be right back.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Hi, I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program. War on Blacks is a topic added to the Fourth Branch programming in order to discuss the intricacies, the complexities of race relation in America. The goal is threefold. 1. To bring attention to the various forms of prejudice, discrimination, and racism in the country. 2. To expose the undeniable presence of such in every aspect of life and every corner of our society. 3. To extricate us all from the ignorance, the indifference, or the complicity. The ultimate objective is to make the discussions of those issues, racism, prejudice, discrimination, a normal part of our lives. Then, and only then, will we as a society be able to eradicate the problem. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Abraham Joshua Heschel exclaimed, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for the minimum of reason." Join me in the journey to restore equality. Or would you please get out of the way? Thank you. War on Blacks is a topic in which we discuss race relations in America. If you have not watched this program before, well, welcome. In this venue, we take a look at the various forms of racism in the country. Now, I would again encourage you to take a look at the peoplebranch.org website. That's where we publish a number of articles that address this particular topic. Also, on the People Branch YouTube channel, we have a number of videos that are posted in regards to that very topic. Considering that we have also taken a look back all the way back to the period of slavery, so it will really be very useful for you to take a look at the People Branch YouTube channel and browse for topics either race relations, institutionalized racism, or war on blacks. All those different banners will lead you to this discussion that we're having now. Now, one important statement I always make since the beginning of this program is this: there are two very distinct groups of whites in the nation. There are millions who are racist and who discriminate, and there are million others who are not racist, who do not discriminate. And we always explain that's the reason the discussion of race relation in America is very difficult and very complex, and that's what makes bringing a solution to this matter not an easy thing. We decided a couple of months ago actually to take a look back at the period of slavery in order to understand the dynamic, the interaction between blacks and whites. So we walk our way all the way to the end of Civil War. So we left at a time when we talk about this, the bridge, the Civil War bridge, which is where we, in theoretically speaking, that we believe that that was the end of slavery, and from that point forward, blacks were free, but not without a lot of casualties. There were at least 1 million casualties. A good 600,000 individuals died, and the rest were wounded. So the idea, the war on blacks, have cost a lot of lives. Now, the Civil War, you might recall, was fought here in the United States because there were millions of whites who wanted to keep slavery around. Remember that? Well, there were also millions of others who fought side by side with blacks to put an end to slavery. And we say, thank God, slavery ended. With the Emancipation Act, Abraham Lincoln put an end officially to slavery. But that did not change much in the country in terms of how in terms of the predicament blacks have been in. What does that mean? Well, we have been walking our way away from the bridge. In other words, after the Civil War, we decided, let's find out what exactly happened to blacks after the Civil War. Because remember, that was an important point in history, that there was a clear delineation between the period of slavery and modern times. So we call it before slavery and after slavery. Now, there are hundreds of books written not only about slavery but also about the Civil War. We did not approach the topic to provide that type of in-depth analysis or about those periods, but rather to take from those periods important events, important pieces of information that provides us enough so that we could understand the dynamic of the relation between blacks and white. Now, after slavery, well, after the Civil War, blacks were free, but something happened. Follow me very closely, because we're gonna try to take a detour from racism to anti-Semitism, and today will be considered the first day that we will begin to discuss the topic of anti-Semitism, but more specifically this rift in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. And it is important to understand I guess the basis, the foundation of those fights, just like I had to take a look back all the way back to slavery to understand what really is going on here in the United States as far as racism is concerned. So we need to understand the anti-Semitism aspect of what's going on in the Middle East. Now, what happened beyond the Civil War? Because if we look at today, we can say with a high degree of certainty that the discussion, the debate of racism in America is not just a black and white issue. It is a very complex issue. So it's not really simple. And that's the reason that we're talking about 1.5 centuries beyond the Emancipation Act, and we're still talking about racism in America. So if it were to be a simple issue, if it were to be not a complex issue, by now we would have already solved that problem, don't you think? Well, it's not. You may recall just last week there was this big headline about rich celebrity whites who took advantage of their stature, who took advantage of the celebrity, who took advantage of the amount of wealth that they have to push their kids in college, high reputable college, Ivy League school. Now, if you look at it from a human perspective, any parent has the opportunity to do so would do so. Now, you can say that's unfair. You can bring the notion of bribery to the conversation, which is what the Department of Justice is looking into. Or you can look at the aspects, the morality aspect to it by saying, well, parents should not really buy education for the children because they should encourage their children to actually make a little bit of effort in order for them to be qualified to be accepted at Ivy school. You can look at it from that angle, or you could look at it from the angle of the school by saying, gee, they're giving so much hard time to minorities, to blacks, because they want those individuals in that category, in that race, to make so much effort in order to be accepted at those schools, and yet they open their door for people who may not even have the qualification, but they have the money. So no matter which angle you look at that particular topic, it's bad. Which, of course, illustrate the very point of what happens to blacks. Now, many things, plenty of things, they are out of the game. They are pushed on the side. They do not have the opportunity. They're not offered the opportunity. Although we say black parents always tell their kids that make the effort, study hard, you get to a good school and you get a good job, and so on and so forth. Now, that particular piece of news that just came out clearly tells you that's not the case, because whites continue to enjoy the privilege that they had during slavery, while blacks continue to suffer to no fault of theirs or of those blacks, because they've been making the effort. They've been studying hard. They've been really doing what it takes in order for them to be admitted to an Ivy League school. They close the door, all the while on the other side, the whites that are being admitted, that feel that, well, they deserve to be there, actually do not. If they were to have to take a test, chances are they would not be admitted to the school. And that's the reason their parents buy getting in the school. So they bribe coaches, they bribe professors, they bribe deans, they bribe everyone in order to get their kids into Ivy League school. All the while, also, just that same week, we have a number of black students that came out, give interview to tell how much difficulty that they had to be admitted to the school. And even when they show qualification, meaning their SAT score, etc., they are doubted, they are questioned. Remember that girl in Florida? She took the SAT score the first time. She didn't get a high enough score. She decided to take it again, and the next time she took it, she did excellent. What did they do? They questioned that. So blacks continue to have this cloud over their heads while they remove all obstacle for whites as long as they can pay their way in. So the war that we're talking about, we call war on blacks, is not just physical casualties, although there is that too. It's financial casualties, it's psychological casualties, it's emotional casualties. We're talking about 150 years beyond the Emancipation Act. As you can tell, modern time, society still has all those obstacles, all those barriers erected to prevent blacks from getting there. This is not me telling you a story. This is what has been, this is what we call systemic racism in America, institutionalized racism. Now, this is a topic we will continue to debate, obviously, because this topic is not going anywhere. But something happened that get me to think that the problem is even places that we don't usually look at to find those kind of problems. They're there. A couple of weeks ago, actually it could have been just a week ago, Nancy Pelosi introduced in the House a resolution. Let's call it the anti-hate resolution. And that was introduced almost exclusively because of, well, what Ilhan Omar, who is a congressman from, I believe from Minnesota, she represents the 5th district constituent in the 5th district in Minnesota, and she sent a tweet out, and the tweet says something to the effect that her job is to represent the constituent in the 5th district. But during the thread of conversation between Mrs. Omar and Greenwald Glenn, a journalist who brought a conversation that Mrs. Omar had with another individual, and that was around the topic of Israel, Jewish organization. And Mrs. Omar suggested in the tweet that, well, she said it's about the Benjamin. The context that Mrs. Omar was pointing out the fact that Israel get a lot of support here in the United States from the legislators, and the idea that she was trying to convey is because there are a lot of lobbying, and Jewish organizations do a lot of lobbying, which means they give money for campaign. So Republicans in particular, there are Democrats as well, Republicans in particular are more inclined to bring a resolution, legislation to the floor which benefits Israel greatly. And that's the context of the conversation. Within minutes of this thread of tweets going on, the country was on fire because Mrs. Omar is anti-Semitic. Which brings me to the question, which brings me to try to understand is, what is anti-Semitism? Well, the simplest definition is hatred against Jews. The simplest way to look at it is, well, anti-Semitism is a behavior, language, action that are anti-Jews, anti-Israel. Now, the statement that Mrs. Omar made, we're going to look at it in two different aspects. When she said it's about the Benjamin, now I cannot read into Mrs. Omar's heart, so beyond her statement, we're going to just look at her statement. If she says that it's about the Benjamin, and the context is she's saying the reason that Republicans and Democrats, they provide so much support for the state of Israel is because they get so much money, so much lobbying money from those Jewish group. I guess I'm confused as to how is that anti-Semitic? We know this is not news for legislators, this is not news for constituents in the United States, for anyone that in Washington there are plenty of lobbying groups and there are Jewish organizations that do exactly what Mrs. Omar said. So I'm confused as to what makes it's about the Benjamin anti-Semitic. Now we're looking at it from one angle. I'm not Jew, obviously, so I would have a difficult time understanding how is it to say that it's about the Benjamin anti-Semitic. I'm having a very difficult time grasping that, and for that I resort to a different country, Cuba. When Obama tried to establish a relationship with Cuba, lifting the embargo, the sanction against Cuba, Marco Rubio and a bunch of other Republicans were completely against it, fully against it, against the idea. Now, Marco Rubio is, of course, descendant of Cuba. His parent, I believe, from Cuba. Now, we're not discussing the reason because we want to bring this conversation to its more simplistic form in order to understand what is anti-Semitism. Because I'm confused as to why Mrs. Omar's statement is anti-Semitic. So Marco Rubio went against the idea of Obama lifting sanctions, went against the idea of Obama having establishing relation with Cuba. So it's okay for Marco Rubio to be against that and is not called anything because it's Cuba. Now, what if Cuba was Israel? Would Marco Rubio be considered anti-Semitic? That's what I'm trying to understand. Is the position of someone to express a sentiment that can be justified by certain facts, does that make the individual anti-Semitic? Because I'm trying to grasp that concept, because you go on Fox, on any network that's Republican, and in Washington, both Democrats and Republicans, they were up in arms. My God, Ilhan Omar needs to be crucified because she's anti-Semitic. Now, had Marco Rubio take the same position that he took against Cuba, against Israel, would Marco Rubio be considered anti-Semitic? That's a question, because it seems that anytime someone take a position that's not positive, that's not favorable, that's I guess that the rest of the country judges not appropriate, that person is automatically anti-Semitic. Now, I heard the conversation of someone saying that, well, you can criticize Israel, you can be against something, but statement like this is anti-Semitic. Which brings me to the other aspect of the conversation. For decades, Republicans in general have been saying things that clearly racist. Now, the latest we had was Steve King. But as far as Republicans in general, it's not just things that they say, legislation that they pass. In fact, that's even worse than just saying things. Legislation that they pass are blatantly, honestly, anti-minority in general, anti-blacks in particular. And Steve King being, of course, the straw man for the Republican Party, everybody decided at some point that he had gone too far. They crucified him. They say, you have gone too far. Even Greenwald Glenn, who wrote an article and called Mrs. Omar the Steve King of the left, for decades, he never said anything about Steve King. It's not just in January of 2019 that Steve King just said something that's not acceptable. Steve King has been what Steve King has been. And for decades, the Republican Party was just fine with it. Now, I'm not here to defend Steve King or to defend Ilhan Omar. I'm here to understand what is anti-Semitism. That's number one. And number two, why such outrage for a statement? Again, anyone that can explain that to me, I'm looking to understand what the context, not what Mrs. Omar has in her heart, because nobody knows, but the statement that she made in the context that she put it in clearly say that, to me, there is nothing wrong with the statement. She's saying it's about the Benjamin, meaning that lobbying, Jewish lobbying group paying Democrat and Republican to support Israel, and they do so. And we have a lobbying group that do exactly the same thing for other countries. If you remember that now, Donald Trump, former campaign manager, sits in jail because he was doing lobbying activities for countries in Europe, Ukraine in particular, Russia. So yes, we have in Washington a problem, and it's lobbying legislators to pass legislation that benefit other countries to the detriment of the United States of America. So I'm not sure so far I'm at a disadvantage to understand what is anti-Semitic about the statement that was made, that Mrs. Omar put in the context that, yes, it's about the Benjamin, that the Jewish organization lobby both Democrat and Republican legislators, and they get to have favorable legislation in the House, in the Senate. What is anti-Semitic about it? I would like to understand it personally, because someone explained it to me, then maybe, just maybe, I will drop this conversation and say, oh, I see what you mean. But now here's the second aspect. Steve King and company has been talking like this about blacks for the longest. There was no uproar, there was no outrage, because the outrage that happened in Washington against Mrs. Omar was unprecedented. A resolution was introduced really to condemn anti-Semitism, to condemn anti-racism, to condemn to Islamophobia, and so on and so forth. But we know all those things that were added were just window dressing. And the reason we know that is because all this time, all those things have been happening in the House, in the Senate. There was no resolution until now, which also support what exactly Mrs. Omar was saying. Because all this time, there was no outrage about people talking racist, using racist language, racist slur against black. There was never any outrage from nobody, let alone people out there across the United States. Oh my God, it's against Israel, it's anti-Semitic. How come there is no outrage when it's anti-blacks? So Mrs. Omar's statement has to be taken into in context. That's number one. But number two, more specifically, that what she said was even mostly supported by the very resolution, because the minute it's about Israel, a resolution ought to be crafted. So no resolution for a decade, 15 years, that Steve King in Washington has been saying things that's anti-blacks, that's racist. There was never any resolution. There was never any outrage. Donald Trump ran for the presidency of the United States on that platform. There was never any outrage. There was never any resolution. And suddenly, because it is about Israel, there is a resolution. So Mrs. Omar was right to say that it's because of that very thing. It's about the Benjamin. Because why all of a sudden both Democrats and Republicans up in arms, they have to have a resolution so that to prevent people from criticizing Israel? Why is that? All of a sudden, in fact, I'll give you something better than just people talking racist, using racist slur or language in Washington. I never heard any outrage from any Republican or any Democrat for blacks being killed on a regular basis on the street. No outrage. Right here in the United States, the citizens of the country are being gunned down, executed, silenced. Nobody's outraged. You don't hear anything. In fact, if you tune into Fox, at the time those things are happening, they're talking about something else, or they're giving the platform to the very people that committing those crimes in order to say, yes, oh, it was okay, it's a black individual. No outrage. So yes, Mrs. Omar had a point. It's because that we support Israel to a fault, even when Israel is wrong. So the outrage actually confirms exactly what Mrs. Omar said. That it's about the Benjamin. Everybody's outraged. I watch Fox, I watch MSNBC, I watch CNN. Everybody that comes in condemn Mrs. Omar for saying that. It was bipartisan condemnation. Everywhere you turn, Mrs. Omar anti-Semitic. In fact, they use that, Republicans, legislators, Fox, everywhere they use that as a card against Democrats. See, you have racists in your midst as well. Fox, they make programs after programs after program to say exactly that. Blacks are gunned down every day on the street. There is no outrage anywhere. If they had that kind of outrage about the way that blacks are treated in this country, today racism would have been over. Yes, if there were that kind of outrage, the kind of outrage you find across the board, no matter which station you tune into for a whole week, that's all you heard. No matter which individual they brought to talk about it. Pundit, legislators, everybody was singing one song. Outrage. Well, because it's anti-Semitic. Now, I'm not here to say that it's okay to be anti-Semitic, because I don't want you to take my words and twist it as if this is what you're hearing. That's not what you're hearing. First, I'm trying to understand how, in the context that Mrs. Omar expressed that sentiment, how is it anti-Semitic? Because in reality, there are plenty of lobbying groups, including Jewish, who give plenty of money to both Democrats and Republicans, lobbying in order to get more favorable legislation. What is anti-Semitic about it? That's what a lot of countries. Mike Flynn was caught even serving as Trump advisor, but on the side, underhanding, was doing lobbying for foreign country. And that's something that happened across the board. But if we say that about any other country, it's okay. It seems to me that's what I'm hearing. Because if we say that Manafort did lobbying for Ukraine, well, what is Manafort? Is he anti? What is he anti? If someone were to say Manafort did lobbying for Ukraine, what is it? It's about the Benjamin. Let's remove the Jewish organization for a moment. Let's put Manafort instead. So if the statement that Mrs. Omar made was towards Manafort, towards Ukraine, what would she be considered as? If she were to say it's about the Benjamin, that Manafort is sitting in jail today, he was doing lobbying for Ukraine, for Russia, and Mrs. Omar were to say it's all about the Benjamin, what would she be considered as? Well, my suspicion is she would be looked at as someone making a true statement, because that's what it is. Now, the minute that you remove Ukraine and you put Israel, it becomes anti-Semitic. That's what I'm trying to understand. So if anyone, Jewish or non-Jewish, will understand in that context. Now, don't give me context of anti-Semitism, because I understand what anti-Semitism is. In fact, today we will start the anti-Semitism program, in which we will take a look at the various aspects of anti-Semitism, and as well as the action by Israel towards Palestine, and try to understand in that context what is anti-Semitism when you are having that kind of discussion. Because so far the only thing I understand, based on the context of what just happened in Washington, what just happened around the country, is anything that you say about Israel, if it's not positive, if it's not favorable, it's considered anti-Semitic. So far, that's what I understand. Because in the context that Mrs. Omar made the statement, to me, to my understanding, I don't see where the anti-Semitism is. But I'm open for someone to open my eyes and explain to me in the context. Don't explain to me something outside the context. In the context that Mrs. Omar made the statement, what is anti-Semitic about it? And second, which I'm expecting and waiting for Nancy Pelosi and company to also explain as to why there was never any outrage for all the racist languages that been used against blacks, racist languages and legislation passed against minority and against black. Why there is no outrage in Washington? And suddenly Israel triggered outrage. I'd like to understand that, because those two work together for me, because blacks have been put under a cloud that everything done to blacks is okay. Happen to be citizen of the United States of America. No outrage from Fox when blacks are gunned down by police officers. No outrage. But today, flashing the anti-Semitism card seems to be what's en vogue. Everybody wants to flash the anti-Semitism card. They want to hang, literally, Ilhan Omar for making the statement about it's all about the Benjamin. Is it not? So anyone with information, anyone with knowledge, I'd like to reach out to me and please educate me, because I'd like to get educated in that aspect. We outrage when any criticism is done towards Israel, but we're not outraged any kind of racism towards black, any kind of anything that's done that's been pushing the black race behind. Further behind, there is no outrage for that. In fact, if anything, it's almost as if it's welcome. No outrage. You would never tune into Fox and find that someone is outraged because they're doing harm to blacks. You would never find that. Someone is outraged because a police officer just executed an unarmed black man on the street. Oh, no outrage for that, because hey, but any criticism about Israel, even if it's warranted, is considered anti-Semitism. Prove me wrong.
Hi, I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program. War on Blacks is a topic added to the Fourth Branch programming in order to discuss the intricacies, the complexities of race relation in America. The goal is threefold. 1. To bring attention to the various forms of prejudice, discrimination, and racism in the country. 2. To expose the undeniable presence of such in every aspect of life and every corner of our society. 3. To extricate us all from the ignorance, the indifference, or the complicity. The ultimate objective is to make the discussions of those issues, racism, prejudice, discrimination, a normal part of our lives. Then, and only then, will we as a society be able to eradicate the problem. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Abraham Joshua Heschel exclaimed, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for the minimum of reason." Join me in the journey to restore equality. Or would you please get out of the way? Thank you.
I invite you to join me Monday when we continue this conversation. And also, we will take a quick look at the road to 2020. And I will be dissecting a very important aspect. I will show you with a lot of proof, a lot of data that what Donald Trump does in 2020, he will not be reelected. I will bet my very future on that. That even if Donald Trump supporters sell their soul to the devil, I guarantee that there is no way in the world that Donald Trump can sit back in the Oval Office in 2020. You don't want to miss that conversation. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and see you on, well, Monday.
The Fourth Branch Podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.
Screaming out, stop snitching. What if Adam and Eve ain't eat the fruit? You think we'd be able to see the truth? Or what if Albert Einstein ain't think of the nuke? Or Smith & Wesson ain't teach us to shoot? You think there'd be as many players out there if there was no booth? Matter of fact, what if white man hung off a noose? Would it still be cool to say nigga? Or maybe we would make sick figures? Or would we wanna be crackers? And all the whites would be rappers? What if Martin Luther King survived? You think the New Orleans flood would have caused him to drop and die? I wonder what if and see what is. Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if? What if everything you knew was gone? What if? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if? What if everything you knew was gone? What if? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you change your route to the road we on? If Christopher Wallace never got murdered, how much money would Sean Carter be worth? What if Tupac never got hit with the flame? Would the game still have change filled with these lames? What if Jabari wasn't speeding down the street? What if the bullet Malcolm sent never hit Zeke? A black guy dropped off at the house instead of a stop? Or Ali never got bopped by the cops? What if the little homie EZ didn't die? Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if? What if everything you knew was gone? What if? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if? What if everything you knew was gone? What if? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you change your route to the road we on? I don't know. What if?